This is 9/11 Freefall.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of 9/11 Freefall. I'm the host, Andy Steele. Tonight, my guest is none other than CEO and founder of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, Richard Gage, AIA. We're going to be talking about the event that's coming up in New York City on September 10th and 11th. A big event for 9/11 Truth. It's called Justice in Focus. We're going to be going over all the details in this interview. This is a long interview, so we're going to be jumping right into it tonight. I'll be playing that for you in just a moment. Stay tuned.
The views expressed on this show by guests and the host on issues outside of the 9/11 controlled demolition evidence are the opinions of those individuals alone and do not necessarily reflect those of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth.
Richard Gage, AIA, is a San Francisco Bay Area architect of 28 years. He's a member of the American Institute of Architects, and he is the founder and CEO of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. He's back on this show tonight to talk about the great event that we have coming up in New York City around the anniversary time. Richard, welcome back to 9/11 Freefall.
Thank you so much, Andy. It's an honor to be here, as always, with you, and I'm excited about what we're talking about today.
That's right. Our audience is fully aware of why we are here, what this organization is about. A lot of them are very aware of the controlled demolition evidence and why this issue is so important, even as we move forward 15 years later. We've seen the ramifications of the post-9/11 world. We know the lie that those ramifications are based on, the scientific evidence that you've been beating the drum about for years, working so hard. And here we are, 15 years later, coming together in New York City to talk about these things and pursue justice for the people that died that day and all of the victims that came afterwards. So, Richard, just lay it out there. Tell everybody about what's coming up in September.
This is the most important 9/11 conference we've ever been associated with at AE 9/11 Truth. We have banded together with a number of other sponsoring organizations, including the 9/11 Consensus Panel, which has been put together, as you know, by David Ray Griffin and Elizabeth Woodward and others, and also the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry, which is a group of more than a dozen attorneys who are fully focused on 9/11 and exposing the truth. They are focusing on the whole day on Sunday, September 11th, and others like the New York State Legislative Action Project and the 9/11 Truth Action Project are focusing on the first day, September 10th. It's all called Justice in Focus, a weekend symposium in New York. This is the 15th anniversary of 9/11. And those of us who have been working, some of us for 15 years, myself for 10 years, most of us for a whole number of years, way too long, trying to get progress in exposing the truth about 9/11 to the American and international media, our elected representatives. This effort on this 15th anniversary is focused on justice on behalf of the family members, on behalf of the victims, which includes the citizens of the United States, which are enduring a $4.5 trillion global war on terror, where our civil liberties have been legislated away and given away and taken away by executive orders. So we want justice, and so does this team of a dozen attorneys. And what have we done? We have really powered up our legal effort. We are so excited, Andy, to announce that Daniel Sheehan, the People's Advocate, that's the title of his biography, 40 years in the legal industry, successful litigation with the Karen Silkwood case, the Pentagon Papers, and other cases that he's been so involved in, Iran-Contra affair. This is an attorney's attorney. This gentleman has looked at the evidence for 9/11, and he's saying this has to get out. He has examined deeply the deep state. That is to say, who are the players behind the scenes, behind the 19 fundamentalist hijackers? Who are the people behind the people who finance them? Now, this is way beyond the scope of AE 9/11 Truth, but as I mentioned, there's a number of very ambitious 9/11 Truth organizations who are co-sponsors of this weekend seminar, well beyond AE 9/11 Truth. We focus particularly on day 2, where this group of attorneys will be hearing the evidence that we're assembling at AE 9/11 Truth and coordinating, which is including for 3 hours, myself laying out the evidence for the explosive demolition of all 3 World Trade Center skyscrapers before this group of attorneys who are hearing this evidence, and I'll be assisted by Graham McQueen, who's an expert on the eyewitness testimony of explosions at the towers, David Chandler, who is an high school math and physics teacher who has exposed the free fall and near free fall collapse of these towers, John Cole, a civil engineer who in his backyard created experiments proving that thermite can bring down structures, homemade cutter charges with thermite and thermate, and who's done experiments showing that you can't have a near free fall collapse by gravitational force against a set of vertical structures, in his case in a scaled down experiment with vertical columns between plates, which 110 of them, which represent the Twin Towers. But until you have an outward explosion to remove those verticals, that's what creates a near free fall collapse. And he's proven this in scaled experiments, which is what we do in engineering. That's how computer models are actually made from experiments. He'll present this evidence to the group of panelists. We'll also have one of our experts. Most of these experts have appeared in our landmark film, 9/11 Explosive Evidence. Experts speak out, including Steve Dusterwald, a 40-year structural engineer who will present the evidence that you can't have free fall without taking, because there's no time there to crush the columns that are obviously either being crushed at some, with some super force, highly unlikely because there's not enough super force, more likely being removed. And he'll make those arguments before this panel of up to a dozen attorneys, actually. And we have other experts as well, including Tony Zambodi, who's written at least a couple of peer-reviewed papers and who understands the NIST theory of how they believe and have tried to prove that Building 7 came down due to thermal expansion of long-span steel beams. And Tony disproves that theory rather rapidly. He also shows that the towers could not have come down at free fall or near free fall without a jolt, without stopping without spending time and energy to crush those 47 core columns and 200-plus perimeter columns. No, that can't happen. He'll talk about the lateral. I'll be talking about the lateral expulsion of those freely flying structural steel sections, landing 600 feet in every direction and shot out at 60 miles an hour, which, again, David Chandler will discuss the lateral ejection and the speed of these objects. So all of this evidence will be looked at, analyzed, packaged, not only by the 8 attorneys associated with the 9/11 Lawyers Committee, the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry, who've been meeting for a year on weekly telephone calls, and we've been assisting them with this evidence. But Daniel Sheehan will be sitting on this panel looking at this evidence along with Judge Ferdinando Impasamato, the honorary Supreme Court President of Italy, the honorary President of the Supreme Court of Italy, saying that more correctly. This gentleman is all about getting the truth about 9/11 into the international court system. He's bringing his ideas, his concepts, and his plan to do just that. We're giving him the evidence he needs in the case of the destruction of the World Trade Center complex, and he and Daniel Sheehan also have some ideas about how to take this forward. And we've got some very exciting announcements coming up at this conference about just that. So these gentlemen all collectively will be setting the stage for the evidence as they say, well, what sets of evidence would a grand jury need? Does this meet the standard of evidence in an actual judicial, a real judicial setting with authority? And then we'll present that evidence. They'll evaluate it. They'll provide their comments, and then what to do with it, how to best get it into the existing court system, how to best use it for lawsuits which are underway, and what kind of lawsuits could be envisioned and enacted upon in the future. What I'm most interested in is how we, as activists in the 9/11 Truth Movement, thousands and thousands of us, 100,000, at least 50,000 on our own mailing list at AE 9/11 Truth, how can we deliver each of them a package, a PDF document that they can print out, which is the results of this packaged material, which may take a month or so, or 2 or 3 after 9/11, after the evidence is given, processed, got to be packaged and presented in a very legalistic fashion, so that each of the activists that we can inspire to print this out and take it to their local judge or governor as evidence that of possible treason. If we have evidence of treason in this country, our federal law, section the code, the federal code, section 18 requires us to submit this to a local judge or jury. And so we're going to empower ourselves and encourage every 9/11 activist to submit this, and in the hopes that we can find some righteous member of the governors of this state, of this union, or the local judges. Among them, there's got to be some that will see the light of the lie that we have been presented by our government, certainly by NIST and by our media, so that we can counteract it with actual action. The other thing that's exciting about this event, this weekend gathering of scholars and attorneys and experts in their fields and technical and building professionals is the launching of the Truth Action Project, which hopes to organize hundreds and hundreds of locally based organizations who are taking the AE 9/11 Truth materials to their local officials and people and media, so that we can get action going from the local level on up also. So the launch of that organization is a brand new organization in the 9/11 Truth Movement, is happening also on day one, September 10th, 2016, the 15th anniversary of 9/11. So that's why I'm excited, Andy.
I am too, and just all the names that you listed here are the people that we've been hearing about for so many years, beating the drum, as I commonly say, because that's what it is. It's a steady drumbeat, constantly reminding people of this terrible crime that was perpetuated on our country so many years ago. And we know the truth. We know the evidence. We've published a booklet that lays it out. That's available to our supporters to reach out to others. And I want to focus in on the title of this, because I'm looking at the bulletin that was sent out to our supporters earlier on this week. And it says Justice in Focus. That is the title, folks. And it's a beautiful picture with the Twin Towers standing there like ghosts, essentially, in the skyline of New York. And I want to ask you, Richard, why is this theme so important now, here 15 years later? Why do we need to hone in on the idea of justice and taking this to that next step where we do something more than what we've done in the years previous?
Well, we have not had justice in the court system. All of the legal efforts, the legal lawsuits, but all of the lawsuits have been funneled through, almost all of them, Judge Hellerstein in New York, Manhattan. And he has seen fit to dismiss the ones that point to the real culprits of 9/11. And there's been fines slapped on attorneys who have sought to provide legal action against those who are the real perpetrators. We have not had a lot of luck or fortune in the legal system, and I'm not prepared to address the history of this, but that's one of the sessions on day two that will be addressed. You know, what has happened? Ellen Mariani, for instance, who lost her husband in one of the planes that ended up hitting one of the towers. She was able to go all the way up to, but stopped short of the Supreme Court of the United States. That failed, and that was an effort to provide the truth about why her husband was killed. So there are many other cases that met with an ill fate in an attempt to seek justice. And so this has frustrated a number of attorneys who have finally, in the last year, gotten together and said, look, we got to do something about this. So there will be a fundraising effort at this event to help these attorneys with their best planned efforts and strategy in specific cases, which they will be revealing and talking about others that are in formation stages, so that we can get justice in the court system. That's what the 9/11 activists really want. And so I think a lot of activists in the 9/11 Truth Movement are fed up with the lack of results in getting legal justice, and they can come and help just by being there and contributing to the dialogue, but by hearing the the efforts, especially with the gravitas of Daniel Sheehan and Judge Impasamato and Michael Lebron, who has a show called Lionel Radio, a local radio personality and attorney from New York, who brings his group of followers to this event as well, and will be bringing the results of this event back to his listeners. He's a huge radio listenership. So that's very exciting. And by the way, people can purchase your tickets now to this event because there's an early bird discount until August 15th when the tickets jump up in price. And so right now, for $35 for the whole weekend of everything we just talked about, $35 is a great price. It helps us secure the Cooper Union, the historic venue where Abraham Lincoln made his famous speech that won him the nomination for the President of the United States. One of the older buildings in New York, and which has a great venue for us, 800 seats. And we've got to fill that two-thirds full in order to make it work. So I encourage everybody to go online now and purchase your tickets. And you can see on our website, AE911truth.org, there's a banner there down on the right, and encourage everybody to click on that. It takes you to explains everything that's going on at the conference. So just go to AE911truth.org, and it'll take you right to the ticket platform where you can see all the speakers, many of them who are going to be there. There'll be even more we're still working on. Looks like we have Robert Steele, former CIA agent, whistleblower, expert in false flag operations, which once again, AE911 Truth is not the sponsor for. This is not an area of our expertise, but it is an area of great interest for our other co-sponsors, Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry, New York State Legislative Action Project for 9/11 Justice, 9/11 Consensus Panel, who take on the broader set of issues outside the destruction of the World Trade Center, which of course is the scope which AE911 Truth finds our most comfortable area of expertise, and that which we have created DVDs to expose 9/11 explosive evidence. Experts speak out. Firefighters, architects, engineers expose 9/11 myths, and 9/11 Blueprint for Truth, a set of DVDs that you can find also on our website, AE911truth.org.
Well, there you go. And Robert Steele, that's a great guest, and it's not any relation to me, I want to clarify, but somebody that we definitely want to hear from at this event. Richard, I'm going to the website, AE911truth.org. Right now as we speak, it says right on the right-hand side, you scroll down, Justice in Focus 2016. You see that beautiful banner I was describing earlier. You click that, and it takes you right to the page. I'm looking at the rates here. The early bird for the full weekend is actually $30. So it's actually even $5 cheaper than what Richard just said. It goes up to $35 after August 15th. Folks, $30 to be in the presence of these great people. All of these people have been working so hard making the future history of America. I remember going to an event in New Hampshire. I don't know if you were there. This was years ago, and my memory of this is kind of filled with cobwebs at this point. But I remember that there were some great people speaking out there, folks talking about the aspects of 9/11 that AE covers, folks talking about other aspects of 9/11. But sitting in that audience amidst all of these great supporters of 9/11 Truth, activists, I remember them with their notepads out, writing notes as people spoke, taking information from them, and I just felt like I was part of something great here, like something was going on, a piece of history that I was sitting in the middle of, this audience of just interested people, not even an audience, Again, an audience just sits and watches. These people were actually taking notes, prepared to go back to their homes and do something with that. And we've seen that throughout the 9/11 Truth Movement over the years. And all the great videos that are made, the articles that are written, all the great street actions that take place, you are a part of that, right? So to attend this event is something that you will remember for years and years, and you will be glad that you did it. And to do it at the great historical Cooper Union, where Abraham Lincoln spoke, and we're going to be having more historical people speaking there, I have no doubt, it just being part of this event. So again, you can go to ae911truth.org. It's on the right hand side. You click that link that says Justice in Focus and go right from there. You can purchase your tickets. It's got the address for Cooper Union. Yeah, if you were like me a couple of years ago, being a little intimidated by the idea of going to New York City for the first time, you can find links on the internet that'll help you get to the Cooper Union. If you need some advice on that, you can always rate the show and we'll see if we can help you out. But it's really easy, folks. Also, we're going to be live streaming this, right, Richard?
Oh, that's pretty exciting. Thanks for mentioning that, because, you know, most live streams, Andy, are pretty low in quality. You got people walking in front of the camera. You got the camera sitting on the lap, looking at the back of the seat in front of the camera guy on an iPhone, or, you know, you can't hear what's going on, or you can't see the slides. We are starting from scratch. And with the help of Alan Reese, our technical director of the live stream, we're going to be on Google Hangouts, and we have 2 cameras that he can choose from, a wide angle and a zoom in. And in addition to that, we'll have a direct feed from the projector and a direct feed from the sound. So he'll be making these choices on the spot, with nothing to do but saying, which camera do I want right now for what's going on right now. Now, that'll be going on all weekend, and we'll start selling we're going to ask for donations for the live stream. It'll be something like half the price. So from your own computer at home, you'll be able to watch and tune in and participate all weekend. And that's not all. After each session, these video segments of each section will be automatically uploaded by Google Hangouts to YouTube. So you can share that with your friends immediately following each section in real time on September 10th and 11th. And it just doesn't get any better than that. And so we encourage everybody, when we have it'll be a week or 2 from now, I think, Andy, maybe 3 weeks, that after we get a sense that people are really filling up these seats, because if we don't fill the actual seats, we can't make the finances work for Cooper Union. It is the most expensive venue the 9/11 Truth Movement has ever put together, and the classiest. Just look at the email or online at ae911truth.org. Click on the September 10th and 11th venue, as Andy mentioned, where it was. You'll see a photo there of this classy venue. And so we got to fill those seats first. Then our live stream will go on sale. And Andy, I didn't even tell you who else is going to be here. This is pretty exciting. Also, William Pepper, attorney, PhD, who was successfully litigated Robert Kennedy case. He's also the attorney for the family of Martin Luther King, who was found in a civil litigation whom the government blamed for the assassination of Robert Luther King, was not involved, and a jury found that, in fact, the government was involved in the assassination of Martin Luther King. He is the attorney that another 40-year career. So this is very, very exciting to have William Pepper be our Master of Ceremonies tying the whole series of panelists and keynote speakers together on day 2 of our 2-day weekend seminar. And then on day 1, we have Mark Crispin Miller, investigative journalist, who most people know, who is all over wanting to get the truth out about 9/11 and what really happened. He will be weaving together the various panelists and keynote speakers throughout day 1, September 10th, Saturday. So those are the two people, Bill Pepper and Mark Crispin Miller, who will be Master of Ceremonies. So we couldn't hope for two more qualified and intellectually stimulating speakers with great gravitas. So we're pretty excited about them as well, Andy.
I'm really excited too. I had Mark Crispin Miller here on the show. I have not had William Pepper on the show yet. That is a fact that I need to set right here and change in the near future. But William Pepper has been involved with the group that discovered the missing structural features from the World Trade Center 7 investigation, and wrote the letter to the Department of Commerce Inspector General. So he's been involved with this 9/11 issue as well. And I'm thinking back, and it's been a while since I've been to a 9/11 event, just a couple of years. It seems like a while to me. But going back in time, back to the days when we were out there at Ground Zero trying to get attention for this issue. I think AIA 9/11 Truth was even still only a few years old at that point, and I wasn't certainly involved with AE as deeply as I am now. But just 9/11 Truth in general, I remember on the anniversary standing in the rain with all these great activists, people talking while the water fell from the sky, and that gray sky on that morning, and I think I might even caught a little bit of a cold coming back, but it was well worth it. And again, this is that feeling that you're a part of something bigger than yourself. You're a part of history, not this phony history that you watch on television with all of the people standing there clapping and nodding their heads like those little bobblehead dolls behind the presidential candidates, and all of this manufactured pageantry that we see projected to us. We're told that is history, that's something that we need to be a part of. No, the real history is made at events like that. The real history is made out in the street with the rain beating down on you, doing something when it's the least popular to do it at that moment. And it's actually become more acceptable now in the public's eye from what we've observed, and more people are questioning 9/11. But you get that sense of a fellowship, of camaraderie. You get your energy heightened from going to events like this. Your battery's charged. That's why I recommend that, even on a personal basis. So you have this opportunity to listen to all these great people speak. You get a chance to be part of the great actions that are going to be taking place to get justice for this issue, but also you get a personal benefit from it too. That's why I encourage anybody who can to make it out there. If you can't make it, that's why we wanted to mention the live stream. You might live on the opposite side of the country, like I do right now, but be able to follow it via the live stream that we're providing. And that gives you an opportunity to show other people, because there's going to be a lot of people on that day whose mind goes back to 9/11, and the media, who knows what they're going to cover regarding 9/11. And if they do cover it or mention it, it's just going to be reinforcing the official story, which is bogus. Right, so what a great opportunity to do outreach with your family member who may be more open to this now than they were 5 years ago, to put on the live stream and sit and watch it that day. I remember years ago during the Toronto hearings, I met a young lady, and she was waking up to this for the first time because she was talking to me about it, and she got tuned into the Toronto hearings as they were happening. They might have been releasing YouTubes of them as they were taking place. And she was actually watching the full, 10 hours or so, just on her own. She got all wrapped up in it and was telling me things about it before I even saw it. All right, so that's a bit of outreach that was going around, centered around that event. You can do the same thing with a live stream here. And, of course, my rule still applies, even though this is a bigger event than just the presentations that Richard does around the country and the screenings of the movies. And I set this rule up for those tours, but the rule also applies for this. If you go to this, I challenge you to bring someone with you, somebody that is new to this, that may be still on the fence, bring them and introduce them to all the great information that's being presented, and also get your batteries charged, as I say. That's the personal benefit. And that leads into my next question for you, Richard, because you're talking about all of the actions that are going to be taking place to get justice for 9/11. You talk about all the great speakers. But just from your own perspective, what kind of personal benefit do you think people can get from this? I want to hear it in your own words.
Well, first of all, I'm convinced that everyone who comes will be deeply inspired by the new cast of characters who are bringing a wealth of legal history and precedent, which 9/11 is clearly falls into the pattern of. Just to have new, fresh blood, if you will, in this fight for justice is incredibly inspiring to me personally. And I know people will be inspired just to have them there. Michael Lebron, Lionel Radio, New York. Gary Null will be there from New York. Michael Springman, who was the liaison for the State Department assigned to deny or approve visas for people coming out of the Middle East from Saudi Arabia, who was watching these rubber-stamped visas on these for these terrorists to go right by him, who was silenced when he spoke up about it. To hear that story gives us a historical context. This is back in the 80s and 90s that set up the access to in our country for Middle Easterners who had no business being here, given their histories of violence and so forth. And so who are the cast of characters that he was tangling with? Who are the characters that Wayne Mattson, who will be there on day one, right off the gate, talking about the forces that gave rise to 9/11. This is an educational history that'll be inspiring to all of us. Some of us have heard, these two excellent whistleblower and investigative journalists, respectively, but to lay the foundation for the keynote address right off the bat in the morning of Judge Impasamato, who will be focused on Operation Gladio, which most people don't know much about, and he's an expert. He prosecuted these international criminals, and he's traced them back to the United States from Europe. Operation Gladio being an operation to provide terrorists who were designed to stay behind in the event of a communist takeover, but really what they were doing apparently is providing terrorism in Italy, blaming it on the communists, but it was obviously not the communists. So another false flag operation, deeply exposed by this internationally renowned judge and honorary Supreme Court president of Italy, here in the United States on September 10th and 11th. We're honored to have him. I'm inspired by him. I'm also inspired by understanding what is it about these 28 pages that has everybody so excited, both on multiple fronts of this story. Those who see it as a possible diversion from the true perpetrators of 9/11, because Saudi Arabia seems to be, the officials from that government seem to be fingered here, along with the FBI, though. Well, if the FBI is complicit, and they are in these 28 pages that have been declassified, then what does that mean? Who was handling, responsible for these FBI caretakers of these hijackers? So This is coming right back to roost, and we've got people to look at it and break it down for you. So I'm looking forward to learning all about this because we've all heard different sides of this 28 pages issue, and we're going to hear all sides of it. Jeff Steinberg will be there. He's written a damning article in I forget the publication. He's another one of the experts there. I'm also inspired. I early on when I became aware 10 years ago of the truth about 9/11 from David Ray Griffin initially, who was being interviewed by Bonnie Faulkner on the Free Speech Radio in Berkeley Guns and Butter program by Bonnie Faulkner. He was talking about the explosive testimony, and that is the 500 first responders who were recorded by Thomas von Essen in October after 9/11. And this was all hidden from the American public by the city of New York. Finally, the New York Court State of Appeals forced the city to release this information. And in August of 2005, we finally learned that there's 156 firefighters and first responders talking about and witnessing and experiencing all of these explosions and seeing flashes of light. Well, Graham McQueen from Toronto is going to be breaking that down for us. And I'm going to be inspired to learn, well, why didn't I hear about this in the media? Why didn't, this is what I was thinking when I was hearing all this on the radio 10 years ago. Graham McQueen has done the article that really breaks this down. This is an extraordinary opportunity to hear all of these experts on all these different subjects. So that's a long-winded answer to your point, Andy. What inspires me? I'd like to know what's likely to inspire you most also.
It's well, first of all, I just want to talk about the educational factor because that is a really important aspect of this because it is going to be 9/11. What better time to talk about 9/11 than 9/11 itself? And again, what you're going to get from the corporate media is just a rehashing of the official story and this patriotism that essentially just amounted to politicians putting their arms around firefighters, trying to piggyback off of their real-life heroism on that day and trying to associate that with the agenda that was pushed on us afterwards. That's all you're going to get from the corporate media. And I say this to even our detractors, the people who don't like us talking about physics and common sense every week on this show, and Richard talking about that when he does his presentations, all right? What is wrong with knowing more about the biggest mass murder in our modern history, in our country? What is wrong with getting a better understanding of this event? I played Alan Reese's interview with Shyam Sunder here on his, he did it like right after they released the Building 7 report. I played it here on this show, and one of the things that really stuck out to me, I thought it was actually funny, even though it's really not, is that beyond their time for public comment, they didn't want any more discussion on this. They were just going to close the book. They're going to make it a shield for politicians to hold up and say, we don't need to look into this further. We don't need to trust our own eyes. We got this report. Now, the politicians actually say the 9/11 Commission, but the real actual report that they should be hiding behind is the NIST report, but they shouldn't even be hiding behind that because it's filled with fraud and lies. So basically, they don't want to look into this any further. You mentioned the 28 pages issue. It's something that should be looked at. More information coming about 9/11 is not bad. This is what we do with disasters throughout our entire history. There's still people who study the Titanic, and there's no questions about that I know of or any serious ones, but we still investigate it because it's something that killed people and something we want to prevent from ever happening again. We do this with the Challenger explosion. There's still people who look into that and analyze it and study, well, what went wrong there? All right? There's no serious questions about it now other than, what happened, but we still analyze it because it's what we do as human beings. We try to progress and move forward. Well, why should 9/11 be any different? And if there is new information or something that we can...
And Andy, we'll be right back. But I just realized that I forgot to tell everybody that the first 50 people who order your tickets with the early bird discount, and as Andy said, that's $30 for the whole weekend, will receive a poster of the event, which is signed by every one of the key speakers, at least a dozen. So that is a priceless, timeless memento of this event with all those signatures on it. And Andy, we've sold probably 40 tickets by now. I'm guessing, and that there's only about 10 more opportunities. So if you're listening to me right now and you want a poster signed by all the speakers, I recommend that you order your tickets now. Andy, go ahead and let us know what you're saying, because you just got dumped off.
We're having some technical gremlins here tonight, but Richard, you're the showman. You jumped in here and picked up the slack. I appreciate that. But my point is what's wrong with learning more about the greatest mass murder in U.S. history? You asked me what inspires me. That is a great question, because here we are. I've been at this. I want to say I woke up roughly at the same time you did, and we went about it in different paths and sort of met and went around the circle here and met. That's a really good question, and I got to think about that all the time, because there's moments when it's more there's moments that are more inspiring than others. And what inspires me is the fact that there's been so many people who have kept at it all of these years. At the AIA conference, Dan Barnum's great speech that he gave down there. Things like that, moments like that. And what really gets me is when I go back to the original materials that woke me up years ago that remind us that people actually died on that day. And when I go to New York City, I look up at the tall buildings, the skyscrapers that architects like yourself, put their minds together and build, and I get vertigo. I got issues with heights. I can't look down from an edge without getting this kind of swimmy, nervous feeling about me. And I can't imagine having to look down from a hole in a building and make a decision of whether or not I want to get burned or jump. I mean, that must have been awful for those people. And that it has nothing to do even with the controlled demolition evidence, other than this crime happened and those people were put in that position. And then, of course, we look into the other issues with the people who actually died when the towers came down on them. I mean, that's an awful way to go, too. I can't even imagine what that must be like for the victims' family members. So I put myself in those people's positions. I'm glad that I'm not in those positions, but being here and being awake to this knowledge and having come across the early YouTubes of yourself speaking about this, I feel a tremendous responsibility to do whatever I can while I have my time here on this planet to get the word out. And I'm giving a long-winded answer to you. But we do have a responsibility here in this world. And what else are you doing? I mean, what else are you doing with your time here? People need to feel like they're a part of something bigger, and this is something that actually means something, because the evidence is real. This is more than just getting behind some presidential candidate. It amazes me. I see people getting in shoving matches and fist fights over people running for president. Those people who are running for president are just using you to try to get into office, just using you for votes. Why don't you put that energy behind something real, something that matters? And 9/11 truth matters. The science is sound. The case is proven. All you got to do is bring it to people. And the actions that are being proposed here is about justice, getting mobilized to bring it to the courts. And I fully support this. So I really want to see anyone who's listening to my voice right now do whatever you can to get to New York City or get on the live stream, show it to other people, but be involved in this world. Don't just sit around watching television. Don't just sit around listening to history happen. Make it happen. Be a part of it. So that's my long-winded answer to your question, Richard.
And it's the family members. You brought this up, Andy, that of those people who died on that day that deserve the truth the most. we're mostly inspired to complete our mission of exposure of the 9/11 truth and obtaining a real, unimpeachable investigation on behalf of those family members who lost loved ones, on behalf of those who were killed on that day, on behalf of the many, many, many more who have died as a result of the exposure to the toxic dust on that day. We've got a huge mission, and we're driven by the emotional, legal, and ethical imperative to seek justice where there has been none, where we've only sustained lies to us. This is the one conference, well, it's not the only one, but it is the one that has the greatest chance of gathering a host of like-minded individuals with a common purpose to secure justice. When has that happened before in the history of the 9/11 Truth Movement? Never. This is 10 times more powerful than anything's ever been done on that front. And so we're looking to break through. We're talking about the formal announcement of the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry, who has cases that they want to pursue that all they need is some funding. They're going to announce these major projects, and they're going to announce some major funding that's already a seed money, if you will, for these lawsuits, where we'll have an opportunity then to pitch in and help after we understand the success likelihood of these lawsuits. We understand what they are. We understand why they have a great chance of succeeding, as well as the FOIA cases, which, you know, most of our great information on 9/11 Truth has come from official sources. Much of that has come from the Freedom of Information Act cases, which have been filed. And, you know, unless it's classified information, the government can't keep this. They have to give it to you. Sometimes you have to sue them. We're involved in a lawsuit right now against NIST and FEMA. We raised $8,000 from our supporters to sue NIST. We've done that. We've filed the lawsuit. It's in play. And every time they've been sued, they have released that which they were already obligated to do. That's the kind of analysis and level of detail, greater level of detail, that the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry is going to let us in on. We're going to be on the inside on September 10th and 11th. It's an insider's perspective about what all of these heavyweight attorneys are doing, what they're contemplating, what are the cases that they're recommending. That's all on day 2, of course. And by the way, part of that is a presentation by Dr. Leroy Hulsey, who is one of the country's top structural engineers, forensic engineers from the University of Alaska. We are flying him from Alaska to New York to present an update on the $300,000 project, which he is underway with, a 2-year project. He's almost halfway through it. And he is going to be presenting his skepticism about the official story with some level of detail, which is pretty exciting for all of us, because he's found some very, very interesting things about World Trade Center Building 7, the 47-story skyscraper that collapsed on the afternoon of 9/11 in under 7 seconds. Had free fall acceleration. What does our government, in the form of the agency called NIST, tell us? That this came down due to normal office fires. Well, their task at the University of Alaska is to evaluate the likelihood of office fires which have never brought down a skyscraper. What is the likelihood that could have brought down Building 7, which had a few small scattered fires? So that's a very important update. We will be introducing him actually on day one, and he'll be doing some presentation also on day two as well. So that's another reason to be inspired and to come learn how you can support that critically important project, because we expect that peer-reviewed project, that computerized dynamic analysis, independent, open, transparent, one that can and will and is expected to shake up the engineering community, the architecture community, most of whom, by the way, know absolutely nothing about the third worst structural failure in modern history. Absolutely nothing. It should be the most studied building failure ever. The building wasn't hit by an airplane. Didn't have jet fuel burning in it. Didn't have diesel fuel burning in it. The damage from the North Tower that hit it was not a significant cause of its collapse, all according to NIST. So what about this? I mean, we're going to be getting the inside scoop, the update. And if you can't come on September 10th and 11th to New York, do not fret. You have the opportunity to be right there in real time with our professionally delivered live stream, 2-camera, and direct feed from the sound and audio video projector.
There you go, folks. And unfortunately, we are just about out of time on this hour here. It's gone by really fast. But here's the deal. If you're a fan of this show, you obviously care about 9/11, because it's pretty much all we talk about here at 9/11 Freefall, right? And you're probably thinking about doing it. You know, New York might be in a certain proximity to you that it's possible to travel to it. I advise you to just put away any nagging thoughts trying to prevent you from doing this. Put in the time, the personal time at work. Come down to New York. Be a part of this. You will not regret it. If it's not possible for you to come down to New York, get the live stream, show other people. This is how you help out. This is how you connect and get the word out. To learn more about this event, again, go to ae911truth.org. On the right-hand side, after you scroll down a bit, you will see it. Clear. Justice in Focus 2016. You click that and all the details will be there. It's got the address for Cooper Union. It's got all the times. The speakers are listed there. What else do you want? Come on down and be a part of this. Richard, we are out of time, but I want to thank you for coming on and sharing this with everyone, for all the great work you're doing, for starting AE 9/11 Truth in the first place. And again, thanks for coming on 9/11 Freefall tonight.
Thank you, Andy. It's my pleasure, and I look forward to seeing everybody in New York on the 15th anniversary.
This program's on every Thursday night on No Lies Radio at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. You can also keep track of the archives by going to 911freefall.com. This is Andy Steele saying have a great week and good luck.